Hello, my name is Mark Gempler. I work at Keene State College in the Office of Ceremonies and Events, and it's my job to welcome you and be the facilitator for this session today. This session is the 1255 session on campus partnerships. A few housekeeping items today. Again, we are using Zoom meeting for this session, so you can see all the participants. You should have the ability to create whatever settings, whether you want to see the gallery view or just the speakers, but the intent is so that we have everybody visible if possible. We also are using the chat room. If you'd like to ask a question, please type in waiting in chat and I will call on you when it's your turn. You can also type in the question yourself and I will read out the question. You are also welcome to send private messages. If there's anybody you recognize who's also in the session, you can send private messages through the chat room. And finally, and everybody has been very good about this so far, is make sure that you mute your microphone. So let me hand this off and turn this over to Celia, my colleague here at Keene State, and let her get this started.
Thanks, Mark. On behalf of Keene State, it's kind of exciting to be the person who gets to kick off this first session. The only thing that would make it better would be if all of you were here, which would be really nice. Keene is a beautiful place, and we're sorry that you're not here to enjoy it. Before I get started, I also wanted to thank Misty and Mark, who have done just absolutely amazing work, and we're all very appreciative of that. I have this first slide up for a number of reasons. My contact information is there as well as in the chat, and also so that you know that this PowerPoint has a Creative Commons license attached to it, a CC BY if you're familiar with them. That means you are free to use anything that you see on the screen, that in the slides, with attribution to me, except of course anything that I've used that might already be copyrighted. And if you're interested in those Creative Commons licenses, get in touch with me. I'm certified to talk about them and kind of know what I'm talking about. So I'm happy to talk about them. And in fact, they're connected in some ways with the initiative that we started here. And I'll try to explain what those connections are. My role here at Keene State is as Dean of Mason Library. And in the 6 years I've been here, I have also added to my portfolio the Integrative Studies program, which is our general education program, which reports to me faculty enrichment and digital learning, the Center for Creative Inquiry, which is undergraduate research, and the Center for Research and Writing. And so I have a fairly broad kingdom, as some people, or queendom, as some people like to refer to it, but it has greatly enriched my work and had a lot to do with the connections that were made that brought the Hungry Owl into the library. Mark, if you'll go to the third slide, I'll navigate and you drive. Yep, that's great. So I'm going to just point out a few of the slides really quickly, just as a kind of refresher. And this is just helpful, I think, as an overview of the college itself. There was an earlier slide that tells you a little bit about the area. Like all of you, I'm sure these numbers, some of these numbers will be changing as we head into the coming year, but you can get a sense of what we look like and who our students are. Heavily first generation, many live on campus, and a rising first to second year retention rate, which we're pretty excited about. We don't know exactly why yet, but we're happy that it's there. And those two important pieces of information in purple on the right-hand side, we get very little of our support from the state, and we often rank first or second in average student debt when students graduate. And then a few facts about the library, just right underneath. The last thing that you see there will show that we have a history here, a long tradition of connecting with the campus in ways that libraries may not traditionally connect. Can you go to the fifth one, Mark? So just some photos so you get a sense of what things look like. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see what the hungry owl looked like here in its very first incarnation, in its first summer. We got some huge Tupperware tubs or big plastic tubs, and the food was prepackaged and held in those tubs behind our circulation desk. If the picture in the middle is what it looks like now. That picture was taken just a couple weeks ago, and we are open. We have been open since the middle of March. Since students went home and didn't come back, our library stayed open, and I'm happy to talk about that experience too if you're interested. Lower left are part of our fleet of green bikes. We have about 100 bicycles that we loan out to students, and those are some of them. We have a great TikTok video of the three of us who are working here riding around the library on the bikes, which was kind of fun to make. And on the right-hand side, you can see the lactation station, which was funded in part from a state grant, and the library was identified as a location. So there's a screen and the chair there that's on the first floor. The next one. So this was really the catalyst for the Hungry Owl on campus. In 2018, Sarah Goldrick-Robb was invited to campus. She had just published within that year her book, Paying the Price, which if you have not read, I highly recommend. The talk was sponsored in part by, through our digital learning initiative, which it reports through the library. We have a very strong open education, open pedagogy community on campus, and there are a few slides which go into a little bit more detail about that. And students who attended Sarah's talk immediately galvanized within a week, and we're talking to the president about a space for a food pantry on campus. We're connecting with the pre-med and nutrition public health clubs, and within a month or two, they had demanded space be found, and they found some space in an unoccupied residence hall, which was renovated to put the shelving in, and really literally within a month, they began distributing food. So 3 more slides, slide number 9. All right, so this survey was done fairly early on. It resulted, you'll see down below, in a published article that 4 of our faculty worked on together. It was a small sample, though that's probably about 10% of our students. And it was enough to help the students who were volunteering and the faculty who were coordinating begin to demonstrate that there was a demand and that food insecurity was an issue on campus. Right. Two more. Right. So it's been a few years. I can tell you very quickly that the Hungry Owl came here because the first summer, which was the summer of 2018, everything was shut down. And the Hungry Owl couldn't be open. There was nobody to volunteer. And the faculty advisor contacted me and said, I know you're open. Can I bring some food over? The first 4 or 5 bags of food we had disappeared within a day. Students have kind of came in for them. So that gave the students running the food pantry some ideas. And they realized that there weren't enough of them as volunteers to staff a centralized food pantry, and that there seemed to be some continuing stigma around students going to the food pantry. And so the library became the first satellite location, and since then there are at least 2, perhaps 3 other satellite locations. And so the food pantry itself has become a distribution hub. It just serves as a warehouse and a distribution hub, and the pickup locations are around campus, and we are one of them. And so we've kind of made it our own. We all contribute to it, as well as getting deliveries from the centralized food pantry. And you can see where we are now. We've been supplementing. I have to say, those travel size soap and toothpastes go in a second and I usually stock those myself. They're very popular. You might be glad to know that that actual rice and beans have been the most popular. All the packaged macaroni and cheese is sitting on the shelf, and the pasta and the rice and beans and things are actually going, which is kind of interesting too, because we always assume it's going to be like the stuff that's really easy to make. We buy oatmeal, and we open that up into packets, and we put the packets out. A very interesting conversation has happened. I've been asked more than once if we're concerned that students who don't really need the food are taking it. We also have very many community members who come in the library. We're located right on Main Street. And that has helped us have some conversations around not being so overly concerned about that. If a student is on the food plan and they're in the library and they've got 3 classes in a row and they want to grab, you know, a power bar on the way out, we're happy about that. We don't monitor, nobody monitors. And we've had a few people ask, mostly staff, interestingly, sort of grumbling, you know, people who don't need it will take it. And that's been a good opportunity for a conversation about how we think about what the mission is. So we've got lots of inventory here. The faculty advisor to that club has retired and a new person is coming on board, and we're really looking forward to what comes next. Next slide. I can't remember. Oh, so then there's some community participation. The athletics department started to do food drives in exchange for tickets. We have donation boxes, and most of the food is coming from, you can see, some local industries. So this has been very much student-driven, collaborating with faculty, collaborating with us in the library, collaborating back out on campus and back out in the community. And then the 14th slide, which I think is the last one, the next one. And there's some lessons learned. Those of us in the library are often aware of these challenges. We have students who work for us. We know them really well. They know other students. They'll often point out students to us they know, for example, who are housing insecure. It's very hard to gather reliable data in the model we have, right? Because there's no central distribution hub. So people ask all the time, you know, what kind of data do you have? And I will tell them, I only know how fast the stuff gets used. We don't really know much else. We've got a new distribution center. And we were looking forward to some programs we would do in collaboration with the dining services. So that's where we are, and I'm happy to engage in some conversation.
Great, thanks, Celia. The one question I have for you is the 30% figure that you put up there about kind of the effect of food insecurity that may have had on students. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Was that a surprise?
I can a little. I mean, the survey was done mostly by students in collaboration with faculty in a public health course, a nutrition course. So I wasn't entirely involved. The 30% was students who reported food insecurity. I don't know how granular the question was. We do know that we have students. The question asked about whether students experienced had experienced food insecurity within the last 30 days, I think. And many of our students work, many of our students live off campus, or some live at home. And we were simply getting some, I think, baseline data on that. If you look at the data that Sarah Goldrick-Robb collects, and I should tell you, her center, the Hope Center, just released a report last week, surveying over 18,000 students about their experiences since March. And many of them who went home are, of course, also reporting food insecurity. So the 30% is pretty consistent with the numbers that come up in her surveys, and her surveys include exponentially more students than ours did.
And Celia, it also, I believe it said something to the effect of it either affected them in class or affected them in performance or athletics or something to that effect.
That's right. The students who did the survey were very interested in trying to be more holistic in asking about the effects of food insecurity on students. And so they really wanted to know not only about effects on academic performance, but effects on possible effects on other kinds of student life as well. And that would include for athletes. So yeah, it was a pretty broad question.
Okay. If there's anybody out there who has a question, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Cecilia, this is Scott Beard from Shepherd University. It sounds like we were implementing our food pantries at about the same time. And I just had a question about expansion of services. One of the requests that we got was in relation to our staff who are, because we are a public institution, have very, very low salaries. And we actually opened that up to levels of our classified employees, no questions asked. And I was just wondering if that was something that had come up at your institution.
It hasn't, but what's interesting is that all of the satellite locations are in completely open public locations except one. There's one in the recreation center on the bottom floor where most of the time you need your ID to get through there. But the others, one is in the student center, one in the library, one is in the one of the academic buildings. And as we're all public institutions, we have members of the public wandering around on campus all the time. So it's interesting you asked that because it hasn't come up as an issue, but I think there's a real understanding on campus that anybody who walks by one of these things and takes something is because they need it for some reason. And so I think I hope everybody feels welcome to do that. And that includes our cleaning services, which we outsource. And so it's a separate company, but they're here on campus all the time. And in fact, they're in the library working overnight. And if they're helping themselves to what's on the shelves, I hope that they do, because they probably need it. When we have food out in our staff room, we actually put a note on it always that says, if you're here cleaning, please have something to eat. So I'm glad you raised that. It's interesting. I don't know that it's ever been addressed explicitly, but the way we've set things up, I think people feel welcome, or I hope they do.
Claire is waiting with a question.
Celia, I'm interested in the lactation station, where the impetus for that came from. I know you said it was grant funded, but was there a group of students that asked for that? And do you find that it's primarily or exclusively students that use it, or do you have faculty and staff and community members that use that as well?
So interestingly, this was a collaboration between our human resources department and our public health department. So it was faculty, staff at that kind of level. And I was approached by them for a location, again, because we're so open and we have been, welcoming of the general public and the students. I have to be quite honest in saying I don't see it getting used very much. It's been used a few times since we put it in. Our students are overwhelmingly traditional, college aged. I think some have families. We also have an absolutely unbelievable child development center on campus. And so most faculty are able to get their little ones into the child development center, and they can just walk over there during the day, right, if they need to. So they need our space less. That said, contrary to popular opinion, I actually don't live in this building. I sometimes feel like I do, but I'm not here in the evening, so I don't always see how it's being used in the evening. And so it may get more use then. I'm also not out where that is all the time. My office is not close by, so I can't really see. But that was a kind of institutional initiative, yeah.
And I know enough to know when my president has a question.
Uh-oh.
Melinda, I see your face.
Sorry. Thanks, Mark. And thank you, Celia, for the presentation. I just had a quick question. In meetings that I've been in, there have been, particularly with ASCU, the Association of State Colleges and Universities, there's been discussion around food insecurity, and some of the public-private partnerships have been creating a free food, basically as part of their dining service, a single location where students can come and access food through partnership with a CNS Wholesale Grocers or UNFI Foods or Hannaford. I mean, there are a number of schools that have approached this. I've been asked if that's something we would entertain, but I really was struck by your presentation, the fact that we have multiple satellite sites, that it's come as you wish, and it seems to be working so well. I'd just be interested in your thoughts or reflections on the value of consolidating and building a public-private partnership with an entity. Would that offer more, or do you think that our current approach is actually more effective for our population? And thank you.
I'm going to hedge. Thanks so much, President Treadwell. I'm going to hedge a little bit and say I'm not sure it has to be an either or. So, there's an interesting way that we could continue to stock many more kind of grab and go I mean, I've been fascinated by the fact that when I go out myself and buy the little individual fruit cups, we can't keep those on the shelf. It's fascinating to me to see what it is that people want, and I don't see people taking things, so I can't really tell who they are. But I think there are ways in which we could probably really benefit from both, so that in some of the locations like mine, what students might get are things that they've got, classes back to back, or they end up in the library much longer than they expected, and they just want to grab something to eat before they get to class, right? And we could focus on those kinds of things. The dining commons might focus on others. I wonder if sometimes there are folks coming in at times of the day where this campus is not particularly big, but depending on where somebody parked, maybe walking to the dining commons feels like a long way. I don't know. So I think real potential there to do a little bit of both.
Hey,
Great,
Celia.
thank you so much, and
Sure.
thank you for the presentation.
Yes, we're basically out of time, but I wanted to give you a quick chance there is a question about international students.
Oh, that's a great question. I'm gonna interrupt because so interestingly, we have two members of our local community who are children's book authors, very well known, write incredible books, have used our resources quite a bit. And they are the founders of an international food pantry, which lives in our Office for Student Multicultural Support. And so there is a separate location where they and others bring all kinds of really great sort of international foods, often in response to what students ask for. We have 3 students here from Nepal, all of whom work in the library. So they're here this summer. We love them. And a number of other students. And so it's really interesting whoever asked that question, because we actually have responded to that need, but in a different way. And this is a great partnership with 2 extremely important and vibrant members of our community who I know pretty well. Yeah.
So thanks, Celia. We're going to move on to we're going to move on to the next speaker. Do you want to introduce her or hand it off to her?
Sure. This is Wanda Gonsalves, and she's going to talk about a very interesting initiative happening in Kentucky.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining us in this presentation. And Celia, if I could call you Celia, I really enjoy your presentation. Having worked at larger universities, I haven't experienced what you were talking about, except now working at HBCU, we have actually the same problem. And so I really like the idea of the food pantry, and I thought this might be a good community service for my students. So my presentation is an HBCU's partnership with a majority white institution to increase minority applicants to medical, dental, and physician assistant programs. As mentioned, I'm Wanda Gonsalves. I'm professor and interim dean for the College of Natural, Applied, and Health Sciences at Kentucky State University. I've been there since June 2019, after I retired from 25 years of academic medicine, decided that I would like to help improve the numbers of minorities that go into medicine. So I've worked at 2 academic medical centers, University of Kentucky and the Medical University of South Carolina. I've been on both of their admissions committees, and I've noticed the small numbers of minorities that apply and that are accepted. And so I said, you know, we've got to really do something about that. There are huge problems with health disparities, and there have been several articles that have shown that increased minorities improve the health disparities. So that's the biggest reason why I joined Kentucky State. And I took on the extra job of interim dean. I don't know how that will turn out, but anyway, so I've sort of talked about why. I talked about because there's so few numbers, and interestingly, for several years, that number has actually been decreasing or staying, or very, not decreasing for Black males, but increased over like 1.2% between 1980 and 2016. And then for Kentucky, the students that apply that are minorities or African Americans tend to be 4.1%, while the population is 8%. So with changing demographics, we really need to increase the number of minorities that go into medicine and those other professions. And it also, like I said, improves minority health disparities. And it's also a benefit to the majority students because it improves their cross-cultural competencies. It's also been shown that minorities tend to go more into primary care, and we definitely need more primary care. And it's also been shown that minorities tend to work with the underserved more than the majority population. So if you could show slide number 3, that would be great. Okay, so this basically shows what the demographics of student population is for Kentucky. On the left-hand side, it's like 81% white and 9.9% African-American. And the other pie chart shows the diverse population of Kentucky State University, which is almost 41% blacks, but 24% whites. And then the picture below on the left just shows a picture of that diversity. The man there on the other side is the president of KSU. His name is Dr. Chris Brown. Okay, and the other slide right after that. So why now? Why KSU? The next slide, right after that one. Yes, okay. So I've been majority of my time I've worked at Kentucky State, University of Kentucky College of Medicine. And this is the student body of Kentucky, University of Kentucky. So like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And the upper picture is the College of Medicine. The one below it is the PA program. And the other one is UK's dental program. And I felt that those programs could really benefit. The upper slide shows what happens when you try to improve diversity, and that's Harvard Diversity Initiative. You can see more minorities in that group. So many schools have done several things to improve their diversity and their applicant pool, more qualified students. And they put on different programs like the post-baccalaureate program, like summer enrichment programs, and like pipeline programs. And there was one pipeline program that I researched that I absolutely loved, and that was Prairie View A&M program. So Prairie View has this program. They collaborated with their state. They've got funding from the state, and it's a long program that starts with students entering in their freshman year, and they stay very close with advising those students until they graduate. And they've had a very good success rate in getting students into med school. And they also have a very good success rate of getting students into vet school. They added the vet component to it. So what is CUMA? And I call it Kentucky State Undergraduate Pre-Med Academy. So it's a program that I modeled after Prairie View. It's very similar. We take students in their freshman year. They have to have a GPA of 3.4. They have to be interviewed. They have to really, state why they're interested in this particular program. And in their sophomore year, they can have a GPA of 3.0. So I didn't do a whole lot of advertising this year. It's still new, but I have, without advertising, about 4 freshmen that have joined and about 14 rising sophomores. And it is this collaboration with UK. I first talked to them originally about it and about doing this. They were very accepting of it. They wanted to see how it's progressing. The last thing we've talked about is this collaboration called an early assurance program. And that's when they accept 2 students that meet their criteria and they're automatically accepted. And what will happen is the students look like they're qualified enough, then they may take even more than 2 students. But so far we have this relationship of early assurance program. So CUMA is a program that's dedicated to teaching and intrusive advising, professional development, research, and mentoring. And what I mean by intrusive advising is that those students are are met on a monthly basis to go over things that all of their test taking, all of their, any kind of problems that they have. So it really connects them. This is what the last slide is, our next to last slide is what I propose will be the outcomes. Number one is that collaboration, which I think is great in different areas. There'll be opportunities for students to shadow on a regular basis. They'll learn more about other programs, student research opportunities, test taking and critical thinking skills. And what I like most is that close relationship. So they'll come in as a cohort, they leave as a cohort, and they study together. It'll be, you know, hopefully this is really what I think helps the students even more than anything. And ultimately, we're going to have this increase in applicants and acceptance rates for medicine, dentistry, and the PA program. Next. Next. Oh yeah, okay. So this is really what I wanted to show. So have you all seen this slide? I love this slide. This slide is Tulane University College of Medicine students that were posing in front of a slave quarter. I want to have enough students that we can say will increase the diversity of the programs in all programs, but this is what I'm really going for, and this is the outcome of our program. I think that's it. Do you have any questions? Anybody?
Wanda, I'll kick it off. One of the things that I actually have a daughter who's really interested in medicine, and one of the things that when she's looking at schools, she wants to see schools that have pipeline programs and have opportunities to actually get accepted as an undergrad, either as a freshman or a sophomore. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And I think you mentioned in your presentation that there are 8 other Kentucky schools that are affiliated with the University of Kentucky med program.
Right, yes. Well, Kentucky wanted to increase their students and also wanted a more, probably a better relationship with rural schools. And so they started the early assurance program, and they've invited 7 other schools to that program. And so it's a little bit, besides the acceptance, guaranteed acceptance, they also start in their sophomore year bringing those students in with a 3.4 or 3.5 GPA, and they stay with them by offering help in areas of research or in shadowing. And that's what their early assurance program means. They're going to have 2 students to, how many they could change every year, really, how many students that they actually accept from that group of students. Yeah, but there are all kinds, there are different things, besides the pipeline program, there's a summer enrichment program and that different programs have. I just like the pipeline program, mainly the pipeline programs, because it starts early on and it continues for all 4 years. And I think that actually is the absolute most helpful thing for our students to work together as a cohort, study together as a cohort, and be advised on a very regular basis. To me, that's what's going to make this program real successful, and I've not seen many of them that are exactly like this.
Okay, that's great. We do have a question coming in from the chat. Somebody who's a little bit familiar with Kentucky. However, they currently live in Kirksville, Missouri.
Okay.
And it says the location of the founding institution of osteopathic medicine. I have to ask if you are cooperating with the Kentucky School of Osteopathic Medicine in Pikeville.
I don't have a collaborative relationship with them, but I've been in contact with them. I've asked them about their criteria, and one of the things that we will do on a regular basis, it's essentially that this program is divided into 3 components. The first component is pretty much the curriculum is orientation to the professions, and also learning about other professions. And as a part of that, there'll be a monthly lunch and learn. So they'll learn different things about other programs, but also different, sort of, things that are related to medicine or PA or dentistry. So far, the students that have decided to sign on this year, they're all interested in medicine. I don't have any yet that said, I'm just, I want to be a dentist or I want to be a PA yet. I'm hoping, they'll look at those and they'll make some decisions. But so far, it's all medicine. And I've asked the osteopathic faculty to be one of our speakers in the Lunch and Learn. So they'll learn about it. I think it's good. I've actually even had someone, one of the Caribbean schools approach me and want a memorandum of understanding with that school. So I imagine it'll be other opportunities for the students. Yeah.
If there's anybody out there who wants to ask a question, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Wanda. My name is Jordan Kofer. I'm at Georgia
Jordan.
College. You all may have, do you have the LSAMP program?
Yes.
I can start, you say?
Yes,
Okay.
we do. We do. Yeah.
I'd previously worked with that.
You did?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I did at another institution, and we had just amazing outcomes. And those were students largely. I think one of the outcomes is that you go to graduate school, and a lot of those students were looking into medical field.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, yeah, we do. And someone came, we actually had a little sort of we had a program at KSU this summer, actually. And it was really nice. Yeah, we do.
If there's anybody else who would like to unmute themselves. We do have time for a couple more questions, Wanda. One, it's more of a comment than a question, but
sure.
When you have a program that accepts students as freshmen or sophomores, one of the things that I think that's really applicable for this audience is the fact that they don't have to bury themselves in the sciences. That really many of these programs talk about broadening their education and
yes.
exposing them to the liberal arts.
Right, exactly. Well, we have, one of the things that we've done is we've also created a Master's of Health Sciences, where the students have to take so many hours to achieve that master's, but they can be any major because, pre-med is not it's not a, degree. You have to have just the courses. So that's the reason we did that. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Wanda.
Oh, okay. So that's what I was saying with the Masters of Health Sciences. Anybody can get that master's, and that will fulfill all of the pre-med or dentistry prereqs. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Seeing no questions in the chat, I just wanted to thank you once again, Wanda, and I wanted to give Jordan and Lauren just a quick heads up that I'm bringing this to you now. This is the team from Georgia College and State University with a presentation about career prep and high impact practices. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I figured I would introduce myself and kind of go over our program called GC Journeys, which focuses on high impact practices, and then kick it over to Lauren to talk more in depth. Lauren's the director of the Career Center, and so talk about that collaboration. So at Georgia College, we have this program that was started by faculty. It came out of an AAC&U Summer Institute focused on high impact practices. And, on average, most students complete, according to Tia Brown McNair, it was 1.3 high impact practices during their 4-year degree. And then I saw another study that had put it closer at 1.7. So what we decided is we'd like to see all of our students doing 5 high impact practices during their 4-year career. At the same time, we also took the AAC&U essential learning outcomes, and we mapped our core curriculum to the learning outcomes. So each core class has we call it an essential skill. So we have an essential skill that's tied to that class. So it could be critical thinking, it could be quantitative literacy, written communication. You know, there are 14 essential skills, and so you know they're tied to different ones. And so that's kind of the two parts of GC Journeys. You know, we really talk more about the high impact practices. That's a little easier to explain than the curricular aspect, but they're both equally important. So we put a really big emphasis on, you know, trying to find ways to get each student completing 5 high impact practices. If you could show slide 5, that would really help. And so you see here, the way we've kind of laid it out is we're asking all of our students to complete 3 high impact practices, or all 3 that are built in. So all students will do a first year experience. And that first year experience is kind of a mix. It's both it's curricular, but it's we have a first year experience course. But then we also have a course called GC1Y, and those courses are based on whoever the instructor is, and they're really flexible. Then regardless of what your degree program is, you'll have a capstone. And we've worked with all the degree programs on the capstones and trying to make sure and assure that they're all meeting the qualities of a high impact practice. And finally, we've got a career planning milestone. And that's what Lauren will talk a little more in depth on. And then we also ask all of our students to choose from 2. Now, you may know there are 11 high impact practices recognized by AAC&U, and we're really only we've chosen 8 that we're really trying to kind of focus on and track during the students' time here. So I'll go ahead and kick it over to Lauren, the director of our Career Center, and she can talk more in depth about the career planning milestones.
Thanks. So hi, everyone. As Jordan said, my name is Lauren Eastham, and I'm the director for the Career Center at Georgia College. And our career planning milestones was created to be kind of an in-house high impact practice solution for career development. And like the other journey options, we're heavily ingrained into the students' on-campus experience starting from their freshman year. The thing that's unique about our Career Center in regards to other collegiate career centers is we're really, we have a lot of one-on-one interactions with our students. So whether that be through class presentations starting from their freshman year experience class, through doing workshops and one-on-one appointments. So just to give you a little bit of a stat. So we're a college of about right under 6,000 undergrad students. And for this previous academic semester, we saw 4,700 students at the Career Center, whether that had been for a resume review, mock interview, just anything that revolved their career development. And we're able to do this because we have a lot of faculty buy-in. And that faculty buy-in was created through having conversations with faculty members about the importance of meeting an employer's needs. So in our Career Center, we always make sure that we talk to students and coach students on how to articulate and develop their skills that employers are looking for. And that is really what the career planning milestones is doing. If you could go to slide 11, that would be great. So back one more, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong one. It would be 10. I saw it go by. Right there. Okay, that one. So as it stands right now, the career planning milestones is set in a year by year program. The first year is starting with helping students understand who they are and what they want to do through career assessments, and getting them signed up for Handshake. That's our online career platform where they can find resources, jobs, and internships. We do resume reviews through that platform, just their online database for all things career services. In year 2, we move them into a resume review and then getting them introduced to the power of networking through ensuring that they have a LinkedIn account. Year 3, we really want them focusing on what do they want to do next, whether that be graduate school, pre-professional school, or going right into the workforce. So we work on that plan as well as starting that process of mock interviewing. And then finally, in their senior year, we're just checking in, making sure everyone is still feeling comfortable with their goals, and that they know that they can still utilize our services. So one thing that's unique about our Career Center is that alumni can use our career services for a lifetime. So we work with a lot of alumni as well. But as we've rolled out the career planning milestones, this last class was just our second class to complete it. We've seen, and from Jordan and I just conversing on what truly makes something in high impact practice and how can we be more collaborative with opportunities that our students are involved in with faculty, campus organizations, while still keeping the quality of the career planning milestones. The next phase is to turn it from a year process to a step-by-step process so that we can also accommodate some of our non-traditional students, some of our transfer students, and again, just making it more well-rounded for our student body while also keeping the integrity of the program as a high-impact practice and is also a career development tool. So we're looking at expanding that career awareness where you can go, not just take a test, but hey, what if you did a shadowing experience? That's absolutely a career wellness and exploration. Still keeping those integral document pieces, so resume review, not just 1, but 2 this time, because if you work with students, they can come in one time and it doesn't always click, no matter how well you think you've broken it down. Encouraging them not just to do a LinkedIn, but let's really work on your professional networking skills. Do you know how to go to a cocktail hour and throw out an elevator pitch to introduce yourself to someone to get the next phase? And then again, keeping the mock interview, whether that mock interview be with an employer or one of our Career Center staff members. So really making it more ingrained in the general overall student experience so that we're being more collaborative just as a university.
And the flexibility allows us to work with more departments to incorporate some of the academic experiences into the milestones. For instance, Lauren and I have been working with the College of Business. They do a big elevator pitch competition with Geico each year, and they have about 450 participants. And so we've been working with them. I mean, that's just one example of how we're able to kind of work in some of the things that are happening even in a classroom to work them into the career planning milestones.
Undergraduate research is also really big on the campus, and that's another example of things that we need to make sure that we're giving students credit holistically for, because they're doing some amazing things.
If you could show slide 7 really quick, and then we could take questions. One of the things Lauren and I did is we started looking at, there's for a high impact practice, there are 8 8 qualities of a high impact practice. So we started looking at those 8 qualities. Just up one more slide, sorry. So we started looking at, I guess one more, sorry.
It's back, I think.
Oh, is it back? It's on mine it was slide 7, so it was that one.
Yeah, it was
right there.
7.
Sorry. Okay, so we started looking at sort of the 8 aspects of a high impact practice, and we started looking at the career planning milestones, and we just wanted to find where the overlap was and in ways we could kind of accelerate that to make to make this experience a high impact practice. Some of you may know career planning milestones is not one of the 11 recognized high impact practices. So, for us, it was kind of a local flavor type option. So what we wanted to do is it's probably a little more hip adjacent, but we wanted to kind of take what we already knew, things that were high impact practices, and take something on campus that we could kind of make or try to mimic a high impact practice, and integrate that into GC journeys. All right, I think that's it for us. Take some questions.
Yeah, actually, the first thing I wanted to, it's kind of maybe it's a marketing marketing idea. One of the things in your presentation that was kind of like a catchphrase was, major doesn't equal career. And when I heard that, I saw a black t-shirt with white lettering saying major with an equal sign crossed off, career, right?
Absolutely.
So what I want to know is exactly, how you're working with people on career assessment. And then the follow-up is about adult learners, how they fit into this program.
Great.
So,
Lauren, you want to take it?
yeah, so the first part of that, major doesn't equal career, and then how does that translate into assessments? What we do and with our students is we make sure that when we're having those conversations about a career assessment, that they understand this is just a tool to kind of show you areas that you may be interested in versus, okay, it spat out that you should be an accountant, so you should be an accountant. That's not what that means. So let's break it down a second and look at, well, what are some of the characteristics of that job that you feel like you like? Or are you a helping professional? Like, do you know you want to help people? So toning it down and not being so forceful, and because the assessment said that this was a good job fit, then that automatically means that's where you need to that's the career you need to explore. And how we talk to students. So one of my areas I go in a lot is the psychology department. And the first thing I walk in and say is, so everyone in here wants to be a psychologist, right? And of course the answer is no, but then they don't know exactly what else there is to do. So that's really an example of what it looks like when we say major doesn't equal career, because you may study psychology and very well end up working in HR, which most people would associate more with a business major. So when we're working with students, we start with making sure that they're studying something that they enjoy, and then we can move into some careers that might fit. In regards to working with adult learners, we have a very traditional campus. And so we don't see as many adult learners, but what we're hoping for is that with that transition from the year-to-year model to the step process, is that we're able to be more inclusive of those non-traditional students or students from diverse populations. And so no one is feeling like, oh, I should have been doing that my freshman year. It's more of everyone's working at their own speed, and we can go to the step that best fits where you came to GC at and move from there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lauren. We'll go to President Treadwell.
Yes, thanks, Mark. And thank you, Jordan and Lauren. Really interesting presentation. And I particularly appreciated the way that you connect at Georgia College the liberal arts with the career in this way that's so overt and embodies the high impact practice. So I'm curious, you spoke a little bit to this in the presentation, but how did Georgia College get here? So you have faculty buy-in, you have a career center, you certainly would have student affairs and academic affairs colleagues. How did you galvanize around this focus, gain this consensus, and then build the systems to support it? I'm just interested if you have some words for the wise of how we could try to embody and do something like this.
Yeah, I love that question. And I actually got some private questions asking how we gained faculty buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
This actually, the idea of GC Journeys came out of 6 faculty attending the AAC&U Summer Institute. And during that time, you're supposed to leave with a plan. And those faculty members decided that they couldn't plan for the whole campus. So they came back, got really excited. And we had administration that really kind of supported that. Faculty members just started doing some open houses, getting people involved. We, at the same time, we were also a LEAP state, liberal arts or liberal education, America's Promise. And I'm on the exec board and the incoming chair, so we're really involved with LEAP. So I think we were able to use that as well. And, you know, since it was a groundswell from the faculty, that's a big part of how we were able to just to move into it. It was something that faculty wanted to do. In terms of the 8 that we chose, we were kind of looking at, you know, what Georgia College does really well, and we tried to kind of highlight those things. At the same time, we had a provost that saved money and held money back and really beefed up our career center. So fully staffed, our career center is 12 people. And for a college of 6,000 undergraduates, you know, that's a pretty big investment in our career center. I think it went, Lauren, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it went from 4 to 12.
That's correct.
So it was a pretty big investment there. And I will say, I do a lot of parent presentations. And so they get excited about the high impact practices, but they actually really like the essential skills. And, you know, they talk a lot about, you know, the career planning as part of it too. You know, obviously every parent wants their child to have a job. So, you know, but we get a lot of good feedback from that. And then it's, you know, we've also beefed up our CETL and we've put a real big emphasis on HIPS, and faculty seem to really respond to that. We've got a faculty member in this session who's in our summer HIPS class. So this summer I started a training class, and it's online, but for, you know, how do you run a high impact practice? And we've tried to really support our faculty on, you know, how do we do these things and do them well. So.
And kind of to piggyback off Jordan, one thing is Jordan and I aren't in the same division. So yes. I'm actually student life and he's academic affairs. So coming, you know, when it's time for my one-on-one conversations with faculty that may have not had initial buy-in, because that does happen. That's just the realistic part of this program. One, it's making sure that everyone knows their roles. So I would never make a faculty feel like I'm coming in to tell a student about whatever their subject matter is. It's really making sure that everyone understands that we're all about the career development process that best works for the student, and to try to make it as individualistic as possible, while also just bringing in some of those statistics on what employers are frankly looking for, and that we can provide with making sure that our students are prepared to meet those needs of those employers. And so when we really bring in everyone at the end of the day wants to see our students employed right after college or going into graduate school. And one thing that I failed to mention is that our Career Center, one of our divisions within the Career Center, or one of our teams, is we actually have an assistant director who she's totally designated for pre-professional and graduate school planning. So we're very individualistic and holistic on what is the next step for students. So making sure that everyone understands that when we say career preparation, it doesn't necessarily mean just going into a career after college. We're also talking about that graduate and pre-professional school route as well.
That's great, guys. We have time for one more question with a very short answer. Sarah Y., do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, thank you. Sarah Young, I'm from University of South Carolina, Aiken. And Jordan and Lauren, I was just wondering, and you may not have this data, but have you been able to see how all of your efforts have helped with your retention rates and your graduation rates of your students at the school?
Yeah, so we do have that in terms of GC Journeys in general. I don't know that we've disaggregated it in terms of Career Center, or each experience and how that would happen. But we've been in the up 86, 87 for first year retention, and then we've noticed 4-year graduation rate. I can't remember. We've noticed small increases. We're hoping to really kind of move it up into kind of the next round. And we actually haven't had our first class graduate out of GC Journeys yet either. Long term, we're trying to track that though.
There we go. Great. Thank you very much, Jordan and Lauren. I think it's about time to wrap up. We've got a short window between the end of this session and the beginning of the next session. I just wanted to thank you all once again. Thanks to Celia, Wanda, Jordan, and Lauren. It was wonderful to hear these presentations and to actually be able to talk to you instead of just seeing your recorded presentations.